people who have no idea what punk rock is look at our band and see us as radical or political, you know. And if you don't know what punk rock is, yeah, I guess we would be radical or political, but we exist in the punk rock world where it's like this is what punk rock bands do. This is what we sing about. This is what we talk about. This is why we're here. This is how we grew up. You know, we grew up with bands who really, who really nourish this appetite for something different, you know, for change and awareness and social causes and a conscience, you know, music with a conscience. And, it's all I know, you know, I think it's all we know. Punk rock exists because people were looking for something else. They weren't identifying with what was being shoved down their throat by, you know, all sorts of different channels. And so that's where punk came from. And so what happened, all these bands that were doing things a little differently with a little different sound and that were able to sing about whatever they wanted to sing about, you know, came out and people started identifying with it. And the kids who couldn't get into the big bands that their friends were getting into and couldn't understand why this music was so big got into punk rock. And then the whole community came out of the fact that people wanted to do shows together and play in bands together and let people know that you weren't alone, you know. So I think it's great to be a part of that community.
The top bands that inspired me growing up were definitely the Bad Brains, and they were my first punk rock show, and I'll never forget the energy, you know, that took place that night. It was just insane. I was like 13, super scared, like way in the back of the club, you know.
Bands that inspired me growing up definitely include Minor Threat and Jawbreaker and Black Flag. A lot of great Chicago bands that came out of our area. Bands like everyone from Cap'n Jazz to the Bullyvils and Screeching Weasel and Naked Ray Gun and Los Crudos. You know, lots of great bands. Chicago had and has a great local scene.
Pennywise, Face to Face, Bad Religion, and I was also way into the Chicago scene, like Naked Ray Gun, Screeching Weasel, stuff like that.
Bands like Gorilla Biscuits, you know, the early Revelation Records bands, things like that. But they pretty much answered the question for me, so that works.
I met Mike when I was 17 because he did a couple 7-inches with my old band. And so when we started Rise Against, it was definitely like they were kind of high up on the list. You know, if we were on Fat, that'd be amazing. And bands like No Effects and, you know, Good Riddance and Strung Out were you know, really looked up to those bands, and we were friends with a lot of those bands. So when Mike decided to put out a record, I mean, that was like the best we could have done, you know, at the time. And it's just been an honor. I mean, Mike's probably the most like honest, you know, man in, I don't know, the record industry. You know, I mean, it's just been amazing. We've been very lucky.
We never saw Fat Records as a training ground. We never saw putting those records out as gearing up for something else. You know, for us that was it. Like, it was amazing to be on Fat. You know, to get to Fat Records, you know, was definitely something that, you know, at least from our background, something that we aspire to. You know, and bands like us weren't on major labels. You know what I mean? So we never, at least I never really aspired to that because I never saw any bands like us on major labels. So I never really thought that we would ever have anything that major labels would be interested in. You know, and so that was never a goal of ours. You know, what we had with Fat was amazing and was all we could ever ask for, you know, and everything that came afterwards has just been a bonus, and it's been great.
I'm pretty sure all of us started playing in bands, around like 15? Yeah. And I'm still on welfare. And, no, I'm just kidding. But it's taking, it's a long time. And you work temp jobs in between tours, but I mean, I think the last year we're on tour so much, you can't work a job. So that kind of, you know, sustains us. We're able to pay rent and stuff. But it's, you know, it's a lot of hard work, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's weird too, because when you tour with a band, you make that transition from, you just tour a little bit, so your jobs will let you off like that week or those 2 weeks. Then you start touring more, and then your job starts becoming less cool with you leaving for so long. And so now you don't have a job. And so now you're touring but not making any money, and you're going home, you're trying to find people that'll hire you for a week and a half, you know what I mean, or however long it is. And it gets harder and harder to find that. And then pretty soon you just realize that you need to be on the road a lot, you know, just to make ends meet, you know what I mean? And then you start going on the road a lot, and then you just cross your fingers and hope that, you know, you have some good tours and things happen for you.
It is becoming easier. There's more, I think, places that offer vegetarian options. I mean, it's not the best, but at least Burger King offers the BK Veggie, which is basically tastes like, you know, just mud. But
You can tell we're endorsed by Burger King.
No, yeah, it's a little rough, but you know, you get by. We go to grocery stores a lot and buy peanut butter and jelly, or you know, even like veggie slices, you know, deli slices.
You learn a lot. You know, on
yeah.
the road, you learn like how to make it work. You learn what restaurants are veggie friendly, what restaurants aren't. You learn about the areas you're playing. You know, if you're going to Omaha, like make sure that you bring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with you. You know, but like, and then you find all your favorite restaurants too, which is so great and fun for our band because we are all vegetarian, including our entire crew. And so when we come to places like New York City, like we got our favorite places, you know, we go anywhere and there's like that one restaurant, you know, and people recommend them to us, or, you know, we're really involved with PETA too, and so they let us know like where to go, you know, around the country. Well, the whole video for Give It All was entirely our concept. Like we came up with the idea, the label let us go forward with the whole thing, you know, and just do whatever we wanted. We picked the director. All of the kids in the video were kids from a show we played in Chicago the night before at the Metro, and then we just asked them to come out and meet us downtown Chicago. The video takes place in downtown Chicago, right in the Loop. The train was moving that whole time, just like shaking all over the place, knocking us up. And it was so great to get these kids, real fans that were from our show, into the train and have like a real show in there. So we didn't have to fake it because they were in there. They're pushing us around. I mean, we were pushing them back. We were all just screaming and singing. We're all getting hurt. The train's like taking corners. We're all falling over. We're all sweating. It was so hot in that place. The director wouldn't let anybody go to the bathroom.
He was very intense.
Somebody asked,
passionate.
Yeah, somebody asked for a bathroom break and yelled at him. You know what I mean? And we're like, oh yeah, cool. And like,
I believe he said there's no peeing in this video.
Yeah. Like, it was a fun show, and it was great too because we were able to incorporate so much of our message, you know, with the billboards and the bus stop graffiti and you know, the zoo and everything. We were able to put so much of our message in the video because I think something that is very important with our band is that we realize that the message behind our music and the message behind punk rock in general is so much bigger than any band or any song or any video, you know. And given the opportunity to put something on television for possibly millions of people to see, what would you put on television? If someone told you you could do that, what would you put on there?
It's a video of Living Color covering Sailin' On by the Bad Brains, and it was filmed at, I think, CBGB's maybe. And I remember I was like really young, flipping through like channels, and Headbangers Ball was on. And I just remember like this kind of like, it must have not have been at CB's because it was like a bird's eye view, but it was like the pit and them just, you know, playing, you know, a really good cover of it. And I remember thinking like, wow, that's amazing. I would love to take part, you know, like in something like that, but just super young, you know, I couldn't go to shows. But I'll never forget that.
MTV and VH1 and whoever weren't really playing the bands I was listening to, you know. I mean, they weren't playing old punk stuff, you know. I mean, punk obviously has gotten so much bigger nowadays than it ever was, you know, in the mid-90s or whenever I was getting into punk rock, you know. So it was mostly just, you know, CDs and cassettes and mixtapes and whatever else.
Some song up Appetite for Destruction. I think I was in 6th grade. Steven Adler.
The Ramones, Blitzkrieg Bop.
Enter Sandman by Metallica.
This isn't cool, but Scarborough Fair by the Beatles. It's certainly an honor to be a part of it then, you know what I mean? And what the Global Gathering is, and being a part of the first one here in Miami. Miami is a place where a lot of punk rock bands, at least, don't really make it down to very often, you know. I think we've made it as far south as Fort Lauderdale before, and we've certainly played a lot of shows in Florida. But Miami is a place that often gets missed, and we certainly hear from our fans down here through emails and stuff. People want to see us down here, and it just doesn't always work out for us. So it's great to be here and to play for them and to be a part of this.
Killswitch Engage, Alkaline Trio, Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, Coheed and Cambria's here, Avenged Sevenfold's here. You know, these are all bands that we've played with before. So Tommy Lee is certainly here. Yeah, we got some friends here. You know, it's cool. It feels at home.
It's good to expose all the fans to like a wide range of music. Obviously, you got punk bands, you have like hardcore bands, you have Tommy Lee DJing.
Hey, forget about it. It's funny that this was originally a European idea of the Global Gathering, because something that I know at least I've noticed in the shows we've done in Europe and the festivals,
they're far more diverse than festivals in the States. You know, I mean, you have NoFX playing shows with Radiohead in Germany. You know what I mean? It just happens more frequently, and you have fans who just love that. You know, you have people who just love that. And so if this idea carries over to the States, I think that'd be awesome. It'd be such an eclectic mix of music that you would be able to experience.
We're really excited about it. We went back to our producer, Bill Stevenson. He was in a band called Black Flag. He was in the Descendants. He's currently playing and writing songs for the Lemonheads. The guy's an absolute genius. He's hands down the best producer in punk rock today. And we were honored to work with him yet again. We did our second record with him. So we have a great relationship with Bill. We went back to that environment, made an awesome record that we're really proud of. And we can't wait. It comes out on the 4th of July. I wish I could say that we did plan it, because I think the 4th of July is very symbolic, especially in the sense that the 4th of July celebrates, in a sense, America's idea of dissent. You know, America's, you know, how important dissent was to the founding of our country, you know? And dissent is certainly something that plays a significant role in what Rise Against does. That said, we were aiming for a June 20th release, and it got pushed back to the 4th of July. So we write music so people can hear it, you know what I mean? Obviously, the only part that bums me out is, like, it's like buying a present for somebody and having them open it while you're not around. You want to see the look on their face. You want to be there when it's released and the whole world hears it, you know. And so in that sense, it was a little disappointing. But at the same time, like, I bear no ill will to our fans that couldn't wait to hear our record. That's awesome. Like, I think that it would be a lot worse if nobody cared that our record was leaked, you know, like that kind of thing. So we're certainly lucky to have people out there who care that much about this band that they want to check it out. And that's what music is for, you know. And the whole video was it's an environmental piece. You know, we're talking about natural resources. We're talking about the environment, the wildlife in it. And it was sort of fitting to shoot. We shot in British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver. And it was sort of fitting for us to shoot in a clear-cut forest. You know, a lot of times you see, you know, the wood that we use for paper and houses or whatever, and it's finished in its finished state. But you don't see the decimation that takes place, you know, and what happened to those actual forests. So it was certainly eye-opening for me personally, I think for us as a band, because that was my first time in a clear-cut forest. And I hope that we're able to share that with the viewing audience so they can check that out as well. We invited our friends in Silverstein from Canada, who are great, and also from Canada, Comeback Kid.
Nice.
Who just put out another great record. We're really excited to get on the road with them. It's called Generation Lost. It has 10 days of us on the Warped Tour. A show we did at the Troubadour in Los Angeles.
Yeah, with Strike Anywhere, right?
Yeah, with Strike Anywhere. Midnight, and had to meet a whole bunch of great bands. What else has it got? Some making of the videos, some actual videos, a little bit of everything. It's so worth it, you know what I mean, for a number of reasons. Not just like on like a musical level for your band, you know what I mean, to like get out to so many more new kids, but it's fun. Like, you know, like you form relationships on Warp with other bands and people that like you would never have the opportunity to do elsewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like very rarely are you put somewhere and to spend that much time with people. You know? So it's cool.
I think the memories that always stick out for me are the first year we were on it when we had to like drag our equipment across gravel parking lots. Because at the time it was like hellish, but now you're like you appreciate it when you headline more, that much more.
Yeah.
Because you know how rough it can be. And it just, I remember like trying to like wheel through gravel and your equipment's like falling over and you're just training.
It's a lot of fun. It's like, because when you tour internationally, you're usually touring with a small group of people, you know? And the Taste of Chaos kind of breaks all those rules, and all of a sudden there's, you know, 5 bands and 50 people. And if you put 50 punks on a plane, you essentially take over that plane.
Madness.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy.
Madness ensues.
Yeah, and so that's like it is everywhere you go. And then Lyman, at least we did the first Taste of Chaos, or International Taste of Chaos, and Kevin was great about making sure everyone had stuff to do on the days off. You know, he'd take everyone to wildlife parks. There was a night in Melbourne where he rented out a bowling alley and said, go to town, have a good time.
Yeah, so you get to enjoy your time out there.
Yeah, he really looks out for everybody, and you know, you end up hanging out with a lot of bands. You know, we were out with Killswitch Engage and The Used and Story of the Year and A Funeral for a Friend, and it was a really good time. And we saw a lot of the world in a very small period of time.
Yeah.
We're still kind of doing our thing, you know, touring, which is what we've been doing for years. So, I mean, we're really happy with the success of the record, but yeah, we're still doing our thing. So.
Yeah, I don't think any of us anticipated the momentum of the Suffer and Witness to keep going, you know, as much as it's gone. I mean, like you said, it's going to be a year on the 4th of July, and we're on this tour until September, and then we'll do the Taste of Chaos in the fall, and that takes us all the way into December. And so...
You're booked.
We're booked. We're booked all the way until 08. Doing a summer tour with Rancid, and we're huge Rancid fans. Rancid are obviously legends in the punk scene, and just I think a huge influence on all of us in their own way.
The first Rancid record is actually one of the records I played along to learn how to play bass.
Yeah, certainly bands like Rancid, paved the way for bands like us to even exist here in 2009. Without them, I don't know where we'd be.
Yeah, I've known them for a long time, just with my old band. But yeah, we just all of us, met Tim Armstrong in December, and he was great. He was really excited about the tour.
Totally surreal to be playing with Rancid. To be having Rancid open up for your band. That's something that's really weird and not quite. I don't know. It was kind of just a fantasy tour idea, and it just all kind of worked out. It's really, I certainly never saw it happening.
Yeah, we were getting onto a jetway, and there was we all got on a conference call.
Yeah, because our booking agent Corey, she knew we'd freak out. Our plane was late. We were all literally running to the next plane, and our TM John was stopping us. He was like, "Corey needs to talk to you." And we're like, "What?" He's holding his BlackBerry out like this, and we're on the jetway. All of the flight attendants are like, "You're gonna miss your plane." And we all stopped, and she's basically like, "Rancid said yes," and we were just looking at each other, just "Oh my God, you kidding me?"
I didn't believe her.
Yeah, I thought they were pulling our chain the whole time. I think in the sense that punk rock is what educated me about many of those issues. In that sense, I do feel an obligation because it gave so much to me. I feel like now that we're in a position to give back, we should give back. And not just about issues, but about the bands that we grew up with and loved. You know what I mean? We want to turn people on to the things that we learned through the punk scene, and we also want to turn people on to the music that we learned to love through the punk scene, whether that's by inviting some of our favorite bands to tour with us, or playing covers in our set, or simply talking about our influences, in interviews or whatever, And so I think it's this passing the torch kind of thing. It's the kind of thing where at one point we were all just fans in the crowd watching bands and being influenced by them and influenced by what they were saying. And now that we're in a position to be doing the influencing, it's just, I think, a matter of responsibility to pass that torch down to the next generation. We grew up and, we all knew that if somebody was shoving something down our throats, our immediate reaction was to spit it back up, It's not something that we went to shows to hear. We had teachers and bosses and parents, and enough people in our lives telling us what to do. We didn't need to go to a punk show on the weekend and have somebody else tell us what to do. So it is a fine line, and I don't claim to not cross it either. I think there are times where we attempt to not preach, but I fail at that. And there are times where it's just it comes out and it comes out wrong. And you're trying to give someone a hug, but you got these giant bear claws and you're just hurting them in the process. And it's something that you just have to sort of take in stride and learn from your mistakes and learn from the audience's reaction and find out what works. I think a lot of what we do too is sort of live by example. You know what I mean? We're not out there talking about the fact that none of us eat meat every day of our lives. You know what I mean? But certainly our fans know that, and they appreciate that there are people out there who have made choices in their lives that aren't preachy about it, and that if it's something they're into, they'll come around to it, and if it's not, we don't exclude them from the process and from the band and from the community. The community of fans that we have it's such a broad range of people. It really is, and I think above all things, punk rock should be about acceptance.
Playing Lollapalooza is definitely a milestone in the band's career. The fact that we're playing one of the largest festivals and bringing our little punk rock flair to it is definitely an honor. So I know I'm really excited about it. And the hometown advantage, it's definitely something I'm looking forward to. I think back in December I was in a room with members of Pegboy and members of Stiff Little Fingers, and the singer of Pegboy said, "There's 3 generations of punk rock in this room within 10 feet, and you guys, we're all really proud of what Rise Against does." And that was such an honor to me, that Jake Burns from Stiff Little Fingers, although they're not from Chicago, and Larry DeMore from Pegboy is saying this to me. It's we must be doing something right.
Yeah, Jeff Pizzati comes to our shows and brings his kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From Naked Ray Gun. That's so rad to think that we're even on their radar, and they might even be fans. You know what I mean? And dig what we do. It's kind of, it's really cool. And like Joe said, it's another generation of punk rock, and to be recognized by those bands is certainly that's something that's really rewarding. I remember specifically a basement in a church in Downers Grove, Illinois.
Yeah.
They were opening up for us, you know. And so we were both small bands at the same time growing up. I think, you know, Chicago has a rich history in pop punk, you know what I mean? Which is, you know, arguably what bands like Fall Out Boy do. You know, we all grew up on bands like Screeching Weasel and that kind of thing. And they certainly took that to a level that nobody expected them to take it to. But I think that if you grew up with guys like Pete, you knew he was meant for something much greater than the basements of Downers Grove. I think in a lot of ways, like this tumultuous political climate that we live in, the war, the collapse in the economy, our problems with the environment, in a lot of ways, the world is creating an audience for music like ours. You know what I mean? Like, we are singing songs that are addressing these issues in a time where so many musicians are singing songs that are ignoring these issues, you know? And in that sense, the world has created an audience, and the musical landscape today has created a vacuum for bands like us to exist. And so people are turning to bands like ours and songs like ours because they're looking for music that reflects their own questions about the world around them, because they're so confused. You know, kids are growing up. This is definitely the craziest time politically that I've ever lived in, you know. And think of yourself as a 13, 14-year-old kid, like, you know, and all you've ever known is the Bush administration, you know, since you can remember anything. You know, that's a lot to grow up in, you know. And I think that our music is responding to that, and I think if there were more bands responding to it, we'd have more competition.
I had the idea, and it kind of came from a number of different places. One was just simply the conversations that we were having with a lot of our fans who are active duty soldiers, you know what I mean, or vets from Iraq, Afghanistan, or even Kosovo, you know, and just them coming backstage sharing their stories with us about how they felt about it. And what I found was we were hearing a whole different side of the story than you would get, you know, in the news, you know, on TV. You know, you were getting this fan of our band, you know, somebody our age telling us these stories. That combined with, I saw a documentary called The Ground Truth, which really kind of moved me. And at that point, I was like, there was so much going into it. It just kind of, the song kind of boiled over and out of me. You know, I felt like there needed to be a song that was telling the story that I felt like wasn't being told anywhere in the musical landscape, you know, at least with our peers, you know. And I felt like in the same way that bands like, you know, Buffalo Springfield, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, you know, bands like that really did such an effective job of documenting the vibe of like the Vietnam era, you know, and
Ohio itself.
Right,
you know?
exactly, yeah, all that stuff, which was a great way for people our age to learn about what was going on in the late 60s and early 70s from somewhere different than just history books. You know, when you hear those songs, you really get a sense of, okay, this is what kids were feeling. This is what people were feeling, you know, in a way that a history book could never tell you. And I felt like our generation was lacking that song. You get a lot of feedback from people who are like, you know, thank you for writing that song. That's kind of how I felt, and I didn't know how to say it, you know, that kind of thing. A lot of people who have rallied around the song. We met the Iraq Veterans Against the War through the song, the IVAW. They've been out to some shows. So that's been really encouraging for sure. And then all the way to the other end of the spectrum, just people, you know, I mean, if you're predisposed to, you know, supporting the war and all of that, then this song is going to be a bitter pill to swallow for sure. And so it's been very polarizing in that sense. But I guess the silver lining is that it's created a dialogue. Yeah. You know, and it's really, I think it's been a sort of almost a benchmark in our career, you know, in the sense that it's created this awesome conversation between us and people in the military, people with strong views about the war.
This is our first time playing Lollapalooza here, the first time that they've invited us to play. I've been to the last two. I know Joe went to one of them too. We were both watching.
I went to one as well.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I went last year as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, my brother played.
I didn't realize that all of us went.
Well, we've all gone.
Well, here we are. We've all been to Lollapalooza.
We're veterans.
Yeah. I think when I saw those dudes, I just walked by like this. I was like,
yeah, he hides, sees us from a distance.
Nope.
Ducks behind a tree or whatever.
Nope.
We saw Nine Inch Nails last year.
We did.
On the soundboard. It was amazing.
Yeah, they were amazing. It's cool to be a part of this festival in our hometown. It's definitely the biggest thing we've ever done in Chicago.
Yeah.
So,
a lot of history here in Grant Park too. I mean, this is like everything from like
Replacement's last show.
Really?
Yep.
Was here?
Grant Park.
Oh. Replacement's last show. You have the Obama acceptance speech, like the celebration voting night was here in this park. All the way back to like the 1968 Democratic National Convention where the riots were all right here. Cops were beating the hell out of hippies, you know, all night. So there's like a ton of history right here. So just to be a band playing on these grounds, you know, from Chicago, you sort of I don't know, I'm sort of in awe of all of it, and it's an honor to kind of be a part of it.
I think the difference between Lollapalooza and all the other festivals that happen in the summer, such as Bonnaroo or Coachella, or whatever, is that this was one of the, the original traveling festival that went around. And unfortunately, it's not a traveling tour anymore, but it still kind of has that sort of that feeling as being the original and being the most special one of them all. To condense that down into just one 3-day festival. From the whole tour, so it's kind of cool just to be a part of that. I remember going when I was a kid and hearing about it and thinking that it was the coolest thing, happening, and wondering how they got this whole thing to travel and how they got this whole thing together in the first place. So it's kind of cool to be a part of it because of that.